Get out, child. We don't serve your kind here.
Those were the very first words the bank manager hissed as she stared down at an 8-year-old girl holding a ceramic piggy bank in her small hands. She wasn't shouting. No, her voice was calm, sharp, and laced with contempt, as if the child had committed some unforgivable offense simply by walking into that marble lobby. The other employees glanced up from their desks, their expressions turning cold, judgmental. In their eyes, this little girl wasn't a customer. She was a problem. And within moments they surrounded her, whispering insults, making cruel assumptions, and treating her like she didn't belong in that building at all. But here's what none of them knew. The child they were humiliating wasn't just anyone. She was about to change every life in that room. And when her mother walked through those doors, the smug employees would discover they had picked the wrong family to humiliate. This isn't just a story about a deposit. This is a story about dignity, prejudice, and the shocking way power can shift in an instant. And before we dive deeper, let us know in the comments where you're watching from. We'd love to hear from you. And don't forget to hit that subscribe button so you never miss any of our upcoming videos. Her name was Belinda Washington, and at only 8 years old, she carried herself with a kind of quiet confidence that should have made every adult in that bank smile with pride. This wasn't a child wandering in off the street. This wasn't a prank. Belinda had been preparing for this day for 3 months. She wore her favorite navy blue dress with tiny white flowers, the one her grandmother had bought for her first day of school. Her hair was neatly brushed, her shoes carefully polished, and pressed against her chest was a pink unicorn piggy bank, heavy with coins and a few carefully folded bills. Inside it was $47.50, every cent of it earned, saved, and treasured. There was the $20 bill from her birthday in June, when she asked her relatives not for dolls or toys, but for cash, so she could save. There were the $2 weekly allowances she received for keeping her room tidy and helping with dishes. There was a $5 bill from her uncle when she proudly brought home an A on her spelling test. Even the quarters found beneath couch cushions on movie nights had been dropped into that piggy bank with care. But this money wasn't just about saving. It had a purpose. Belinda's mother's birthday was coming up in 2 months. In the window of a downtown jewelry store, Belinda had seen the perfect gift. A delicate silver necklace with a small heart pendant. Price tag? $50. She was so close she could almost feel the joy on her mother's face when she opened the box. This was why Belinda had memorized her account number. This was why she had practiced writing deposits in her passbook with neat, careful handwriting. This was why she had begged her mother to let her come to the bank on her own this time. It wasn't about money. It was about independence, responsibility, growing up. But the moment she walked through those tall glass doors, none of that mattered to the people inside. They didn't see a proud little girl. They didn't see a daughter planning a surprise for her mother. They didn't see months of discipline and saving. They saw only what they wanted to see. Children from that neighborhood don't have accounts here, the manager whispered, her lips curling into a smirk. Probably stolen money, the assistant manager muttered loudly enough for nearby customers to hear. Call security, another voice added. She doesn't belong. Imagine being 8 years old, standing in a vast marble lobby surrounded not by protectors, not by mentors, but by adults in crisp suits, looking at you as though you were a criminal. Belinda clutched her piggy bank tighter. She didn't understand why they were so angry. She had done everything right. She had followed every rule. But now, she was being treated like she was guilty of something she didn't even understand. And yet, even as her small voice trembled, even as her eyes welled with tears, she didn't back down. She held her ground. Because what those employees didn't realize was this: Belinda was not alone. And the person walking through those doors in just a few minutes would turn their world upside down. Belinda's small voice was steady, even as she looked up at the towering bank manager. "I'd like to make a deposit into my savings account, please." Her tone was polite, respectful, just like her mother had taught her. But instead of kindness, the manager's lips curled in disgust. "Don't lie to me," she spat. "Little black girls don't have accounts here." The words landed like a slap across the room. Several employees glanced over, and instead of correcting their boss, they nodded in agreement. "She doesn't belong here," muttered the assistant manager. "She's probably up to something." Another teller sneered under her breath, but loud enough for others to hear. "Look at her, holding that piggy bank like she's somebody. Probably stolen cash. These kids always are." Belinda hugged her pink unicorn piggy bank tighter. Her chest ached with confusion. She had worked so hard to save this money. She wasn't stealing. She wasn't lying. She opened her backpack and carefully pulled out her blue passbook. With trembling fingers, she held it up. "See," she whispered. "Here's where I deposited my birthday money. Here's when I saved my allowance. My mommy helped me write it all down." Her handwriting filled the neat columns with tiny, careful numbers. But instead of admiration, the manager yanked the book out of her hands. "This could be fake," she announced loudly enough for everyone in the marble lobby to hear. "Anyone can print something like this at home." Customers nearby shook their heads. Some leaned closer, whispering crueler words than Belinda had ever heard in her life. "Looks like a little monkey wandered in here," one white man muttered. "Exactly," his wife added, her voice sharp. "An ape in a dress. No wonder she doesn't know how banks work." A hot wave of shame rushed over Belinda's face. She didn't even understand some of the words they were using, but she understood the hatred in their tone. The assistant manager leaned in, smirking. "Probably drug money. That's the only way a black kid from that neighborhood could walk in with cash." Another teller shook her head. "We should call child services. What kind of mother lets her little ape run around unsupervised with this much money?" Each word was a dagger. Belinda's lips trembled. She wanted to cry. She wanted to run. But she remembered her mother's voice that morning. "Hold your head high, baby. No matter what." So she swallowed her tears, clutching her piggy bank like it was the only thing keeping her standing. But the insults didn't stop. "You don't belong here. She's probably lying. Thieving little ape." The words swirled around her, cruel and heavy. And then, the bank manager's voice cut through them all. "That's it. I'm calling the police." She pulled out her phone with dramatic flair. "Yes," she said loudly into the receiver. "We have an unaccompanied minor, a suspicious black child with a large amount of unexplained cash. She's disrupting business. Send officers immediately." The word police struck Belinda's small heart like thunder. Her vision blurred with tears. Her throat tightened until she could barely breathe. She hadn't done anything wrong, but the people around her had already decided she was guilty. Sobs burst out of her chest, raw and desperate. Still, even through her tears, Belinda hugged her piggy bank closer. She would not let them take it. That's when a young teller named Jessica Chen finally stepped forward. "Miss Mitchell," she said nervously to the manager. "I know this little girl. She's been here before with her mother. She really does have an account. I can pull it up in the system if you want." The manager spun on her, eyes blazing. "Stay out of this, Jessica. You're new here. You don't understand how we handle suspicious people." Jessica froze. Her stomach turned. She wanted to help. But the threat was clear. If she pushed further, she could lose her job. And so she stepped back, ashamed. Belinda wiped her cheeks with her sleeve. The marble lobby loomed around her like a courtroom where she had already been condemned. She whispered the only words she could think of. "Can I please call my mommy?" The manager smirked. "Oh, by all means. Let's call your mother. I'd love to hear what kind of woman sends her little ape in here with stolen money." Belinda's hands shook as she pulled out her phone. The lobby fell silent. Everyone leaned closer, eager to hear what they assumed would be a pathetic excuse from some irresponsible mother. "Mommy?" Belinda's voice cracked, small and broken. They won't let me put my money in my account. They called me names. They said I don't belong here. They called the police." There was a pause. Belinda listened. And then her next words made several people laugh. But soon those laughs would freeze in their throats. "Yes, Mommy. I'm at your bank." The assistant manager smirked and turned to the crowd. "Did you hear that? She thinks her mom owns the bank. What's next? Her dad's the president?" The room chuckled cruelly. But one person wasn't laughing. Jessica, the young teller. She noticed the way Belinda said your bank. It wasn't fantasy. It wasn't playful. It was calm, certain. And deep down, Jessica felt a shiver, because she was starting to believe it. "Mommy's coming right now," Belinda whispered, clutching her piggy bank tighter. "She said she'll be here in 5 minutes." The manager smirked, imagining she was about to scold some struggling mother. But she had no idea that in just 5 minutes her own career, and the careers of every racist in that lobby, would be finished. Because Belinda's mother wasn't just coming to pick up her child. She was coming to end them. The marble lobby buzzed with whispers. Customers leaned on counters, some shaking their heads, others smirking as if enjoying a spectacle. Belinda stood small in the middle, her cheeks still wet, her arms wrapped tight around her unicorn piggy bank. And then, the heavy glass doors swung open. The sound of heels clicking against polished marble cut through the room like a metronome. Each step steady, deliberate, echoing with authority. A woman entered, her presence so commanding that the entire atmosphere shifted. She was stunning, tall, confident, in a custom navy blue suit tailored to perfection. Her hair was styled sleekly, her stride unhurried yet unstoppable. She carried herself like someone used to walking into rooms where she was the most powerful person present. This wasn't just a mother. This was power personified. Belinda gasped with relief. "Mommy!" She ran into her mother's arms, burying her face in the silk lapel of her blazer. The woman bent down, her voice soft now. "Are you okay, baby? Did they hurt you?" Belinda whispered, trembling. "They said I don't belong here. They called me names. They called the police." Her mother's embrace tightened. "Shh. You're safe now." But when she rose back to her full height, the softness vanished. Her eyes, cold, sharp, and unflinching, swept across the lobby, and the room froze. Even the police officers who had just entered the lobby paused, unsure of what they'd walked into. Victoria Washington's voice sliced through the silence. "Officers, release my daughter immediately." The bank manager, Catherine Mitchell, bristled. "Excuse me, ma'am, but we're handling a situation involving an unaccompanied minor. This child was loitering with suspicious cash. We followed standard procedure." Victoria stepped forward, her heels striking the marble like a gavel. Her words were calm, yet each one hit like thunder. "I can do whatever I want, Miss Mitchell. This is my bank." The crowd audibly gasped. A pen clattered to the floor. Someone muttered, "Oh Lord." Catherine's face drained of color. Your bank?" Victoria's tone never wavered. "My name is Victoria Washington. I am the CEO and founder of Washington Financial Group. I own 67% of the shares in Premier National Bank. And today, you chose to humiliate my 8-year-old daughter in the middle of a lobby I own." The assistant manager, Brad, stammered, Miss Washington, I didn't." "You did," Victoria snapped, her voice cracking like a whip. "You whispered, probably stolen. You laughed about kids from that neighborhood. You called my child a liar before even looking at her account." Catherine opened her mouth, desperate. "I was only what?" Victoria cut in, her tone deadly quiet. "Only calling a child an ape? Only mocking her skin color? Only intimidating an 8-year-old girl who came here with nothing but her savings and her dreams?" Her words slammed into the employees like hammers. She turned sharply to the officers. "And you? Are you really here to arrest a child with her savings passbook in hand? A child whose only crime is being black in the wrong lobby?" Officer Martinez shifted uncomfortably. His partner, Officer Johnson, cleared his throat. Ma'am, we see now that she has proper documentation. It doesn't appear she's done anything wrong. Victoria's eyes narrowed. Nothing wrong. She has done everything right. She saved her money. She came responsibly. She presented documentation. The only thing she did wrong was walk into a bank filled with racists. The room went still. At that moment, the bank president, Robert Harrison, rushed out of his office, his face pale. He nearly tripped in his haste to reach the lobby. "Miss Washington," he sputtered, "I am so deeply, deeply sorry. I had no idea." Victoria held up her hand. He fell silent instantly. "I don't want apologies. I want accountability. I want every second of security footage from today. Every insult, every slur. Every second my daughter was humiliated." The staff hesitated. Now. Within minutes, the footage flickered on a back office screen. Customers crowded around. Employees shifted nervously. And there it was. Catherine sneering, Brad whispering, "Probably stolen." Susan calling Belinda a monkey under her breath. The old white couple muttering ape in a dress. The security guard shadowing her every move like she was prey. The footage didn't lie. Gasps filled the room. A young black woman watching wiped tears from her eyes. An elderly Latino man shook his head and muttered, "Same thing they do to me every time." Victoria's voice rang out again. "This is not an isolated incident. This is a culture of prejudice, and it ends today." One by one, she turned on them. "Miss Mitchell, you called the police on my child. You treated her like a criminal. Effective immediately, you are terminated." Catherine's knees buckled. She whispered, "Please, I didn't mean—" "You meant every word," Victoria snapped. "And you will never work in this industry again." Her gaze shifted. "Mr. Thompson, you mocked my daughter, joked that her money was stolen, and judged her based on her neighborhood. You are finished." Brad's face flushed deep red. His mouth opened, then closed. "Susan Clark," Victoria said coldly, "you called my child an ape. You suggested child services. You insulted my parenting. You are fired. Effective immediately." Susan broke into sobs, collapsing into her chair. "Mike Rodriguez, you used your badge and your size to trap an 8-year-old in the middle of the lobby. You followed her, made her feel like prey. You too are finished." Mike dropped his head, whispering, "I was just following orders." Victoria's eyes blazed. "No. You were following your own cowardice." Then, Victoria's voice softened slightly as she looked at Jessica, the young teller. "And you. You tried to help. You recognized my daughter. You spoke up even when you were threatened. That is integrity. From this moment forward, you are promoted to assistant manager, and you will oversee mandatory anti-bias training for every employee in this bank." Jessica's eyes filled with tears. She nodded, speechless. But Victoria wasn't finished. She turned back to the customers. "If anyone else has faced discrimination in this bank, speak now." At first, silence. Then an elderly Latino man stepped forward. "Every time I deposit money here, security follows me like I'm a thief." A young black businesswoman added, "They questioned my account for half an hour last month, treated me like a criminal. My money was legitimate, but they didn't believe me." A Middle Eastern family chimed in. "Our loan was denied despite perfect credit, but we saw white families with worse get approved." Voices rose. Story after story. The pattern was undeniable. Belinda, still clutching her piggy bank, looked up at her mother. "Mommy, can I say something?" Victoria nodded, kneeling so her daughter could stand tall. Belinda's small voice carried across the room. "I thought I did something wrong, but I didn't. I was just saving my money. You all made me feel like I was bad when I wasn't. That hurt. But I'm not going to give up. I still want to buy my mommy her birthday gift, because being mean doesn't stop me from loving her." Tears filled the eyes of customers. A woman in the crowd whispered, "Out of the mouths of babes." Victoria stood tall again. This bank will change. Effective immediately, those responsible are terminated. Every remaining employee will undergo mandatory training. And starting today, I am establishing the Belinda Washington Scholarship Fund to support children from underserved communities, because no child should ever feel the way my daughter felt today. The lobby erupted in applause. Customers stood, clapping, some with tears streaming down their faces. Belinda beamed up at her mother. "Can I still make my deposit now?" Victoria smiled softly. "Yes, baby, let's do it together." At Jessica's window, Belinda finally placed her $47.50 into the account she had worked so hard to build. Jessica updated the passbook carefully, smiling at the child like she was the most important customer in the world. When they turned to leave, the applause began again. Louder, stronger, until the entire bank echoed with the sound of justice. Belinda looked up at her mother as they stepped into the sunlight. "Mommy, I'm still going to buy you that necklace." Victoria's eyes filled with pride. "And I'm still going to make sure no one ever treats another child this way again." What happened inside that bank wasn't just a story about one little girl. It was a reflection of something far bigger, something many of you watching right now may have seen or even experienced in your own lifetime. Think about it. An 8-year-old child walked into a bank with pride, determination, and hope. And instead of encouragement, she was met with suspicion. Instead of kindness, she was met with cruelty. Instead of respect, she was met with racism. How many times has this happened in different ways? In schools, in stores, in workplaces, on the street. Innocent people, and especially children, judged not for their character but for the color of their skin. And yet, what makes this story powerful isn't just the injustice, it's the response. Because when Victoria Washington walked through those doors, she didn't just defend her child. She turned the entire situation upside down. She used her power, her voice, and her authority to demand accountability. She showed those employees, and every customer watching, that discrimination has consequences. Now some of you may be thinking, well, not everyone has that kind of power. Not every mother can walk in and end careers with a single sentence. And you're right. But here's the truth. We all have a voice. We all have the power to stand up for what's right, even in small ways. Think about Jessica, the young teller. She didn't have power. She didn't have authority. But she tried. She stepped forward when no one else would. And in the end, her courage was recognized. And think about Belinda herself. Just 8 years old, and yet she spoke words that silenced a room full of adults. She said, "I was just saving money. I didn't do anything wrong. And I won't give up." That's courage. That's resilience. That's hope. So here's my question to you. Have you ever witnessed something unfair? Maybe at a store, a school, or even in your own workplace? Did you speak up? Or do you wish you had? Tell us in the comments. Share your story, because your voice matters. Your story matters. And when we speak together, change becomes possible. Now let's talk about the bigger lesson. Discrimination doesn't just hurt in the moment. It leaves marks. It teaches children like Belinda, that their worth is decided by someone else's prejudice instead of their own hard work. That's the danger. Because when kids grow up feeling invisible or unwanted, the damage lasts a lifetime. But here's the good news. It doesn't have to be that way. We can raise children who know their worth. We can teach them to save, to dream, to work hard. And we can also teach them to stand tall when someone tries to knock them down. And for those of us who are older, maybe grandparents now, we can pass on that wisdom. We can tell the next generation, you matter, you belong, and no one has the right to tell you otherwise. That's what Victoria did. That's what we can all do. Now imagine this. What if every single person in that lobby had spoken up? What if, instead of staying silent, the customers had defended Belinda? What if, instead of smirking or recording on their phones, they had said, "This is wrong. Stop." the entire situation would have changed instantly. And that's the power you and I have. Because injustice only grows when people stay silent. But when even one person speaks up, the silence breaks, and change begins. So let me ask you again. If you were in that bank, what would you have done? Would you have spoken up like Jessica? Would you have applauded when justice was finally served? Or would you have stayed quiet, afraid of standing out? Be honest in the comments. There's no judgment here. This is a place for real conversation. Now let's talk about Victoria one last time. She didn't just fire racist employees. She didn't just protect her daughter. She set a precedent. She created a scholarship fund to lift up children from underserved communities. She changed the culture of the bank. That's true justice. Not just punishing the guilty, but building a better future for the innocent. And that's a lesson for all of us. Because when we confront injustice, it's not enough to just say, "That was wrong." We have to ask, how do we make sure it doesn't happen again? Maybe that means speaking up at your workplace. Maybe it means teaching your grandchild to stand tall. Maybe it means supporting someone who feels alone. Whatever it is, big or small, it matters. So here's what I want you to do right now. Tell us in the comments where you're watching from. Share this video with someone who needs to hear this story. And most importantly, subscribe to this channel so you never miss a chance to be part of these conversations. Because together, we can make sure stories like Belinda's don't just end with tears and fear, they end with dignity, justice, and hope. Belinda's story reminds us that children are always watching. They learn from how we treat them. They learn from how we respond when others treat them unfairly. And they learn whether the world is safe or hostile. So let's give them a world worth inheriting. A world where every child, no matter their race, their neighborhood, or their background, walks into a bank, or a school, or a store, and is treated not with suspicion, but with respect. That's the world Victoria Washington fought for in that lobby, and it's the world we can all help create. So let me leave you with this. If you had Victoria's power, the power to demand justice and make changes, what would your very first move be? Tell us in the comments. I'll be reading every single one. And until next time, remember this. Your voice matters, your choices matter, and your courage, no matter how small, can change the world.